Hey, you geeks! Week 6 of my writing extravaganza national novel revising season is underway. If you hear beeping in this video, I am sorry. They are building apartments down the block. I've tried to avoid them during recording, but there it is again. So last week, I think it worked pretty well to identify a single trope that I am reworking for this novel and why it means so much to me, where it comes from, and all of that. This week, I'm going to spend the bulk of the video talking about redeeming women seamstresses as heroes in fantasy tropes because they get a really bad rap. We will hear the soapbox later. And after I get off the soapbox, we will talk about my writing process and other little details that are going along the way. By only recording on one day a week, it's so much easier to edit, and I can spend more time actually writing as one does. So we're really picking up the speed now as we head into the plot avalanche, or as I hope you guys will call them for me, Ragnaroks. I don't know if I get to choose that for myself, but I'd be really thrilled if you guys decided to call the end of my books a Ragnarok. That'd be great. Now we are taking an aside to discuss one of my long-standing pet peeves in fantasy: women and sewing and how it is portrayed. Now, this is actually a beef I've had since I was a teenager. When Game of Thrones, the show, introduced me to Arya, the really angsty girl, and how she just hated needlework. And in order to find her edgy alternative, her brother gave her a sword. And yeah, that's cute and all, but I was an edgy teenage girl once. And I discovered that the great thing about sewing is that there is no other art form besides maybe needle felting where you get to repeatedly stab an object multiple times and people say, "Ooh, pretty, good job." Sewing in and of itself is a positive way to channel your anger and create something beautiful. And yes, you might be sitting there daintily doing it, but there's nothing dainty about it. It is a craft. And even Sanderson falls into this, and I called him out for it in Elantris, where the female circle, Sarene, the female main character, comes and liberates the women of Kai by saving them from their sewing circle and training them in swordplay. Yes, swordplay was a skill that was useful at the end of the book, but the implicit assumption that the book makes that they're repressed because they're doing sewing work is just like so counter historical, and no one acknowledges this. Not even Sanderson, who has since gone on to make great strides in women representation with Steris, the female accountant, and Navani, the female scientist. And I am a big supporter in women pursuing careers that are traditionally masculine, as that is something I have actually done in my day job. And Navani and Raboniel's chapters in Rhythm of War were some of my favorites because I was like, oh, this reminds me of my mom playing with her physics toys because she is a woman in science. And then I did an entire video series where me and my mom went and played with her physics toys, and then I did a gloss comparing physics to the Divine Comedy and how that would appear at the end of Wind and Truth in a way that I think was mostly successful. This is not a dig on Sanderson female portrayal in general, or to say that women should only sew. But when women do sew, the lesson I want you to take away from this is needlework is power. And there's a historical example of this. When Anne Boleyn was trying to part Henry VIII from his first wife and the Catholic Church and form the Church of England, she discovers that although she has been mistress of the king for quite some time, Catherine of Aragon, the first wife, is still sewing Henry's shirts. And Anne Boleyn freaks out because she knows that needlework here is a demonstration of Catherine's power. Her influence with the king is such that she is still making his shirts. Anne Boleyn then needs to extend her power to take away the queen's needlework and take it for herself. She is making the king's shirts now. This is not about who is wearing the pants. This is about who is making the pants. And that is a fundamental part of society that since we obtain clothing so easily now, that there's a tendency to just dismiss those who have made clothes historically, which historically has been the women. Now, you might be wondering what my soapbox against the fantastical disservice to women who sew has to do with the third act of my fantasy romance novel. Well, as established last week, female main character is going down the aisle. She is going to marry the villain. This is like the equivalent of Frodo in the Orc Tower just inside Mordor after he's been stunned by the giant spider, Shelob. His best friend Sam ain't with him. Sam needs to develop a plan to storm the castle. Likewise, female main character's best friend, we're calling her Jasmine for this series, she needs to develop a plan to storm the castle. And at this point, she thinks that Lancer, who is also her love interest, has just offed male main character and taken his other guy friend, the cowboy, with him off to his Fortress of Solitude. So she feels like Sam in Lord of the Rings, just utterly alone. But unlike Sam, who only has a frying pan with which to store the keep, and I guess staying, our best friend archetype here, Princess Jasmine of sorts, has the power to manipulate cloth and conversation and has knowledge that her friend is now in desperate need of a battle-ready wedding dress. So she is going to do like the mice did in Cinderella, which is a totally underrated scene. We have the mice gathering together to make Cinderella's dress. And this is frequently omitted from like all other Cinderella iterations. I really think that the only problem with the mice making Cinderella's dress is that the female mice are unnamed. Because if they had names, they would pass the Bechdel test here with flying colors. What we see are female characters who are expert craftswomen in their element saying, we are going to help our sister Cinderella and make a dress. And guys, we accept that you're eager, but as we later see, it's not just that they're male, it's that they almost cut off a female mice's tail with the scissors. Like, they are a workplace safety violation. So thank you, men. Go out and do something. We, the experts in our craft, will take care of this. And they're helping the sister out, not to get a guy, but just so she can dance at the ball and be the most beautiful of all. Lots of women want, regardless of whether or not they attract men. I love this scene. It is very common in modern interpretations for Cinderella to have just be a fashion designer on her own, and that's something laudable. I think it misses part of this. This is a gathering of side characters together to support the female main character on her quest to go to the ball. That is the feeling that I want to incorporate in my story, where I grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s with the trope of the best friend helping the main character get ready for the ball, but the dress remaking is usually done like comically fast. London Tipton does this in an episode of Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and I swear there are more, but I just can remember Sleepover off the top of my head, where it's the best friend's job to help the female main character with her dress, But this is something that's super easy, fairly an inconvenience. Just rip off the hem and safety pin the back of the neck. Like, the craftsmanship is lost here, and therefore the effort that the plot puts on the achievement of making clothes is severely diminished. So I came into this story knowing it would be the best friend's job to make the dress for the wedding finale, but I didn't want to make it cheaply. I want to show that there is effort and teamwork and camaraderie and bringing the community together. If we are following from last week's video where we are seeing the female main character's quest to go and marry the villain as her duty that is heavier than a mountain, and that now her friend is going to say, okay, let's gather our people together and support her on this quest. This is a golden crane moment. And it got me thinking that the actual person who understood this best and did it with needlework was none other than J.R.R. Tolkien. In The Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, chapter Passing of the Grey Company, you know, the chapter that the movies took considerable creative liberties with and cut what I think is one of Arwen's greatest moments. Instead, they gave her the thing with the horse and cut Frodo's big moment from him. I actually love the movies, but I have opinions on what they cut. Of note, when Arwen and her father sent for the Grey Company to go support Aragorn in much the same way Nynaeve would rally the men of Mialkir to ride with Lan to the Gap, Arwen gave the man, specifically Halbarad, a tall staff as if it were a standard, but it was a close furled in a black cloth bound about with many thongs. It is a gift that I bring you from the Lady of Rivendell, answered Halbarad. She wrought it in secret, and long was the making. She made Aragorn a banner. Unlike the movies, she was not merely lounging on a couch dramatically, slowly dying. No, the woman was lounging on a couch, sewing her fingers off to make a standard around which the men of Gondor would rally. And it is important. And we see this emulated in the Golden Crane, although Nynaeve did not make Lan a Golden Crane standard. That was in someone's attic, which is very Wheel of Time-y. And then Brandon Sanderson has whole chapters about, banners are great. Banners are symbols, but no one ever makes a banner anymore. They just magically appear. Well, we appreciate Arwen for making the banner around which an army can rally. And that is what I want in Princess Jasmine's arc in the third act. She is making a dress with the women of her clan, the women of the female main character's clan. Some men are there too. Women from the realms around gather to make this dress. And now, skeptical among you are like, great, you have a gathering of women to sew. Awesome girl power. But that ain't an army. What can they possibly accomplish? What fantasy trope is acceptable to use here? To which I say, do you know what women do while they sew? They talk. They gossip. And the power of the rumor mill isn't so much a theme in Tolkien, but it is in Wheel of Time. It is in Game of Thrones. It sort of is in the Cosmere. But the idea of the rumor mill and perception changing people's minds can be a real power player in fantasy epics. And yet, no one makes use of the fact that women gossip while they sew. And if you're a female main character, generally to be empathetic, you're like bad with gossip because everyone feels like they're bad with gossip, I think. Or at least I could say that the Venn diagram of people who read fantasy books and the people who feel like they're bad at gossip is probably basically a circle. However, Jasmine has the rare character skill of being good at manipulating conversation. She has got the Aes Sedai angle going on here. Aes Sedai are also women who are adept at weaving, although not literally, and adept at leading conversation. Unless they're written by Brandon Sanderson, then they fumble it up and are endearing about it. Anyway, so that the army that best friend Princess Jasmine is gathering here isn't an attack of swords or force. It's an attack on public opinion. It's redeeming the public opinion and changing the populace's mind, which is very important because when male main character comes in a blaze of glory, the crowd needs to support him on this. And this is all best friends doing to change their minds. This is also, again, based off of my real life. When I was a high school student in theater, in the costume room, we got a new theater director one year, and court of public opinion that was held in the costume room while me and majority of other women, few guys, were so in the costumes. Actors were coming in and they were gossiping and we were listening and relaying other gossip. I didn't so much as lead the conversation, but witness the ultimate takedown of a theater director by the court of public opinion in the student body. And that teacher did not get hired back the next year, in large part because the student body did not like her. It was in the costume room over the sewing machines where people did the talking. So this is something that I've seen work in reality, and I think can work in fantasy as well. I really like this plot because it's a different sort of rallying the army, which is another common best friend job. The alternative best friend job, I already have male main character's wingman fulfilling that role perfectly. He's in jail, awaiting to be publicly offed before the wedding celebrations can commence, much as Friar Tuck was in Disney's Robin Hood, or the entire band of merry men in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, or the father figure in Black Arrow. I know you guys are worried about that one. Don't worry, I won't forget it. Or even, technically, Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, Captain Jack Sparrow needs to be publicly offed before Elizabeth and Norrington can marry. And it's only when Will raids the public offing that Elizabeth discovers, that he discovers he loves Elizabeth, and Elizabeth discovers that she loves him. So there's nothing like a good public offing of the third wheel to get love interests to realize how much they mean to each other. Since, as I've alluded to, Princess Jasmine does in fact have a thing for the Lancer, I'm kind of using that they're coming together at some point in the attempted public offing of the wingman to bring those two together. And I think that's going to mix up the band a bit. So we're going to have Princess Jasmine and the Lancer dude with the fire guy's wingman for the final battle. And then we're going to have male main character, female main character, and then Cowboy be their third wheel for their final battle. So we're moving people into position where it's about to go down. Now for the rest of my writing update. I honestly don't remember what chapter I left off on last week. Now we are solidly into chapter 28, coming in at a word total of 74,213 words for the book. Thus, percentage-wise, we're at bing! 82.46%. We're getting close, guys. Last week, I was definitely suffering writer's block or tonal block with the sad chapter, and I thought it was the mother's personality that I was having problems with. I was explaining it to my reading buddy. I'm like, I need a culturally appropriate female Tam Thor. And I really like the solution we came up with. The problem was I needed to have the female main character apologize, which even though many things are not her fault, females have a tendency of doing that. So that seemed in character, and then her mother got to respond to it. In a way, it's very reminiscent of an empty ink bottle in Towers of Midnight, where Rand apologizes to Tam. And then Tam gets to earn Dad of the Year award for accepting that apology. Once we got over that, we got into the cowboy gets to be the whole, I'm not a hero, but you really annoyed me with the whole having your wolf eat the guy who was probably not a threat monologue to Lancer, who then Lancer gets to be like, actually. And then we get to bring the Bard character in, and like the Bard character is actually from the original legend, and she is a hoot. Like, I love writing her character. Everyone else is princes and dukes and other titles I've made up, and she's a bard. She's just a bard. It's so great. And now we're definitely into the gather the armies, it's about to go down sort of moment. I've talked a lot about what the best friends role are in that, and now we're just working out the final kinks of male main character and how he's trying now to make things less awkward between himself and female main character's family, because female main character's family and her extended family, it's important that you ask the clan for permission before you just off and run away with the girl, or any member really, but especially the daughter of the clan chief. You should run that by a few people. We get male main character doing that, and it took several revisions. I was afraid that this arc was going to end up needing to be rejected like the best friend Bollywood dance number before, because it was so borderline, but I think I was able to work it in. Originally, I had the Lancer reaching out on male main character's behalf to the clan to be like, hey, let's talk. But I think at this point, Lancer's already had his great character moments, outsmarting the villain at the end of Act 2 and saving male main character's life. And now male main character needs to take ownership of his role and be like, things got out of hand the first time we tried this. I'm learning my lesson and I'm trying to do it right this time. Now, female main character's younger brother, who has grown up in the past 48 hours, is a feature, not a bug of this magic system, gets to confront him. There's now an elephant involved, so we've got elephants, wolf riders, women who eat Turkish delight and sleighs, all on the same side. They're all the good guys. I just love messing with the Inklings. If they weren't the standard, I wouldn't pick on them, but they're the standard and I love them. So we're going to just take cheap shots at them because one can do that. And I'm having so much fun. Now with the storm clouds are gathering, there's a public offing of the ringman and the wedding of the female main character, all about to go down. Ooh! I hope I can finish it this weekend and then tell you all about it next week. If you want to hear about it, please like, share, and subscribe. Ring the bell so you do not miss that video. And afterwards, I'll probably be back to my regular scheduled Cosmere content as we run into Dragonsteel Nexus at the beginning of December. Oh gosh, guys, buckle up. We are into the Sanderlanche of the year and the Ragnarok of my book.